Welcome to episode 35.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Who Did That Voice, where we take an in-depth look at voiceovers.
It's a new year, and if you're like me, you were already thinking about warmer weather and taking that getaway to that tropical or exotic destination. Maybe you plan to travel to Walt Disney World or Universal Studios. No matter what kind of trip you plan, 3D Travel Company is the company for you. Just visit 3dtravelcompany.com and let them know that Trenton sent you from Who Did That Voice. Or you can book on www.whodidthatvoice.co and click the Book Now button. For a limited time, Who Did That Voice listeners can receive a Disney gift card for qualifying Disney and Universal trips booked and traveled by the end of 2017. Book today and travel away.
Welcome to Who Did That Voice, the show where we take an in-depth look at voiceover. And now, here's your host, Trenton Larkin.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the show. Today's special guest is known as Jimmy Neutron, the boy genius.
Today is the single greatest day in the history of the universe. Pluto is aligning with Neptune, causing space snow flurries to create galactic ice crystals, which keep ice cream at the perfect eating temperature. Yes!
Another character our special guest got to play was Wednesday from the animated Addams Family series.
Wait till the Happy Dale Club hears about this A-plus project. What flair, what creativity. We're whopping proud of you.
Why, most Adamses would have been happy with just staking her to an anthill.
No, not my children.
Thank you, Father. We're just trying to be good Adamses. Right, Pugsley?
And last, but definitely not least, she played Tinkerbell on Peter Pan and the Pirates.
Isn't it pretty? Beautiful.
You really like it, Wendy?
I love it.
Then I'll give it to you. Ouch! Hey!
Peter, you can't do that! You gave it to me!
Oh, come on, Tink. You never do anything with it anyway. What do you care?
I care because you gave it to me, and it's mine!
Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Who Did That Voice. Today on the show we have Debi Derryberry joining us. Debbie, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Trent, thanks. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, Debbie, the very first thing we always like to do when we have a guest on the show is just to get a background of who they are, and how did you also get into the voiceover industry?
You know, I was a pre-med. I was going to go to med school, but I was always a singer, and I decided I'd go to Nashville and be a singer instead. So I was a session singer in Nashville, but the jobs I got were singing as a child's voice. And one thing led to another. I came back to Los Angeles and signed with a voice agent. I've always been an actor. And so things just kind of fell into place, being a singer and a guitar player and doing acting. And then there was cartoons and voiceover. So I kind of fell into it that way. I didn't even know it was actually a job.
Well, that's amazing. You know, not even knowing that it was a career path that you would eventually fall into and become extremely good at, actually.
Well, thank you. You're very kind. You're very kind.
Well, you have a very well-known character, which we will talk about shortly. But one that I didn't realize you played was a little pixie named Tinkerbell back in 1990 on Peter Pan and the Pirates. I was so astonished to realize that was you, because that was one of my favorites growing up.
Actually, I was the first voice Tinkerbell ever had. And it was me and Jason Marsden and Tim Curry. It was a super fun cast. And Scotty Menville. We just had a blast. I was a little snotty, bratty Tinkerbell. Always jealous of Peter Pan or Jason Marsden. It was great.
Well, that's fantastic. So you were the very first voice of Tinkerbell.
Yeah, I don't
Wow.
believe she ever spoke in any of the Disney stuff. She didn't speak. She just twinkles away and wiggles and snoots, but never spoke.
I guess I hadn't realized that, you know, because you're right. She doesn't. She just kind of has a bell sound. She doesn't really talk. So that is most fascinating. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Well, what was it like working with Jason Marsden and Tim Curry on that show, and Cree Summers as Tiger Lily?
Let's see, you know, when you get into the booth with everybody, it's just kind of a party. And I remember once we were out in the green room in the lobby, and Tim, he said, bring me some coffee, there's a love. So I got to serve Tim a cup of coffee. Jason was just a little kid back then, so we just kind of got along and became friends. And Kree and I have always been friends, and they're all adorable. We're a kind of a real small group, the voiceover cartoon people. It's the same people I've been working with for 30 years, and they're all amazing, and I love them.
Well, it just becomes like an extended family, doesn't it?
Kind of does, yeah. In fact, my bestie, E.G. Daly, I talk to her every single day, and we've been very tight for years. In fact, just a little trivia for you and me, Trent. I cut both her daughter's umbilical cords, and she cut my son's.
Wow.
Our husbands didn't want to touch that. I mean, we're a tight community. I was just at a hamburger joint down the street, and Tara Strong's kids were in there having burgers last night.
Oh,
so we're all here in the neighborhood.
Well, that's fantastic. Tara is a very talented young lady as well, doing a lot of the voices from Batman, if people recall, Batgirl, and of course Harley Quinn. That's Tara Strong. So, well, thank you so much for sharing those stories, because I know Tim's always been a character that I've absolutely loved in all the movies you've done, like Annie and stuff. He's a very talented young man, and I'm sure it was fascinating to get to work with all that group of people. And Jason Marsden, I think that was one of his first things. Was that your first thing as well? Because I know that was one of the first animations I believe you did.
It was one of the first. It was the first big series, actually. I mean, I had done things before that, but that was like the first big series. But you never know when you book something how it's going to go, how big it's going to go, how far it's going to reach, how long it's going to last. Never knew that. Even with Jimmy Neutron, it started out with just a little interstitial. You never know.
Yeah. Well, I remember my mom picking up the VHS tapes from the library for us to watch Peter Pan and the Pirates. So that was a classic. I'll tell you what. Speaking of voiceovers, you've done, Jimmy Neutron, which we will definitely talk about more here in a moment, and Tinkerbell from Peter Pan and the Pirates. But you've also been a part of video games, such as when you played Pac-Man on Street Fighter X. What was it like getting to play the Pac-Man himself?
I played it from the moment it came out, because I was alive back then. And, I never dreamed I'd get to voice him. And it wasn't a huge part, but I'm always surprised and amazed, and I just love my fans at conventions that come and want to hear him. And I don't always remember what he sounds like. But no, it's an honor, I guess, because he's so well known.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those characters that's just super iconic, and he sticks out so well because he's bright yellow.
Right. My job in that game is small, just like in Sailor Moon Crystal. I play Diana the cat. And it's a smallish role, but I'm always amazed at the fans. People love that cat.
Absolutely. Sailor Moon has always been a series that I absolutely loved growing up, and all the renditions since. So it's awesome that you were a part of that amazing franchise as well. Well, what transpired for you, Debbie, to be a part of the animated show, The Addams Family, when you got to play Wednesday?
Well, I auditioned for the part, just like so many of us voice actors auditioned, and I was actually filming a TV commercial on a golf course when my agent beeped me on my beeper, and I went to the payphone and put money in and dialed my agent, and they said, "You booked Wednesday on The Addams Family." And I was so excited because, for an actor to be able to be working and book a gig while you're working, that was a big deal for me. I had forgotten about that story. I think you're the first person I've told that story to.
Really? Well, I am honored.
But it was a big surprise when I showed up on the set, at the studio at Hanna-Barbera, and saw the cast was so amazing. I mean, really, John Astin, Carol Channing, Rip Taylor, Rob Paulson, Jeannie Elias. The producers were great. The directors were great. It was a big deal.
Yeah, I was going over the cast when I was looking at your part, and I was like, holy cow, everybody on there was like stellar.
See, I don't know if you can see. I'm going to go up like this. Do you see that long picture up top?
Oh, yes, that is fantastic.
That is all the Addams Family's characters with all of the signatures on it of everybody. Jim Cummings, Nancy Linari, everybody. Pat Fraley, Edie McClurg, Dick Beals. Yeah, it was awesome.
Well, Jim gets around. I know a lot of the shows he's done, but I was surprised when I was researching it last night that he was part of that show as well. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. He's everywhere.
Yep.
But what was it like working with John Astin? I know I always really gravitated towards his character in the live action TV show. So what was it like being able to play with him on the animated show as well?
I find that a lot of on-camera actors have difficulty making the transition in front of the microphone into voiceover, but John did not have any issues with it at all. He was seamless. He was professional. His voice is, he didn't lose any comic timing transitioning from on-camera to microphone. Very impressed. Back then, all I knew was, oh, that was really fun working with him. But now that I teach so much, I now realize he's such a professional. I'm pulling this, see if it'll come off the wall. I have this picture of me and Carol Channing from, I know this is, you can't see it. Your listeners can only hear you say, look at Debbie and Carol Channing. Isn't that crazy?
That is awesome.
It's a picture of me with my little brown pixie haircut and Carol Channing with her giant, crazy blonde platinum hair.
Oh, wow.
There, hang it up again. You get the private show, Trent.
Absolutely, I appreciate it.
Unless we're not on picture, right? We're just on.
No, it's just an audio
Okay.
podcast. I was gonna say Pixie.
Pixie, a Pixie podcast.
I've got Peter Pan on the brain. Well, along with all of the amazing series we've talked about, you did play Jimmy Neutron on The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron. And how did that role come about, and what was it like playing a boy genius?
Well, I auditioned with my agent sending me out just like he sends all us gals out to play little boys' roles, and I realized the people going out for it were varied. A lot of the girls,
had that gruff thing they do, where they have a little texture on their voice.
And I don't really have that. So I did my version of the boy that didn't have any texture on it. And I just got really lucky that John Davis selected me to be Jimmy Neutron. And I didn't know it was going to be a movie. I thought it was just like interstitials, like the way The Simpsons started out.
Yeah.
And I thought, these are really cute interstitials. Maybe they'll do more. And then they said, okay, we'll do a feature film. And I was like, yay, I get to star in a feature film. And then they said, now we're going to do a series. And that was just more, yay. And then there were video games and, commercials and toys. It just kept exploding and people kept loving it. And for all your listeners, if you want more Jimmy Neutron, you should write the head of Paramount and tell them, because it's time, I think. All the people who watched it as kids are having kids now, so we're ready. Let's do it. Let's do another Jimmy Neutron movie.
And while we're at it, we could bring back Peter Pan and the Pirates and bring you back as Tink.
That's right. That would be good.
But you have one of those voices that, stands the test of time, so that 20, 30 years down the road, you can still pick up that Jimmy Neutron, that Tinkerbell, whatever, which is fantastic for you because then you can always be used.
That's right. As long as I don't take up smoking or, have a problem with my voice. I just get plenty of sleep and drink lots of water. I know you're just seeing me drink decaf, but I really have my water here.
Well, I drink a lot of water too. Believe me, I understand with all the talking I do and everything. So, well, for some of the younger people in our audience that might be listening, you were on Curious George as well, and you did play Nochi, the cat. Noki. I wasn't sure on his name, but I've watched the show with my nephew like 1,000 times. But you played Noki, right? Is that how you say it? Gnocchi. Okay. And
it's N-Y.
And the other cat, Lucky, on the Curious George show. And how did you end up getting part of that? Was it just another audition again, or was it something through, a connection you had? Or
how did I get Gnocchi? I think Sue Blue was directing it, and I think she called me in for Gnocchi. And I also did another character on Curious George. I forget her name, but she owned the toy store, and I played Rob Paulson's wife, and we owned the toy store together. And sometimes the directors will just need somebody really quick, and they'll just not cast, they'll just call you directly. So that's, I think, the way Gnocchi went.
Okay.
But it kind of stayed with the show, and in fact, we're doing another season, actually, of Curious George, and I'm reprising Gnocchi in that.
That's awesome. Well, I knew my nephew is about 6 years old now, but I mean, from about age 2 or so on, we were watching that show all the time. That's all he watched on Netflix. And so we watched a lot of you.
And get this, I told you we still there's just a few of us.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, we were doing a Curious George session. We were singing, me, Cree Summers, A.G. Daly, all singing on Curious George.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's really fun.
And I really loved your first day of school video the other day. I watched that. That was fantastic.
Thank you. You know, I do one every year, beginning and end of school. And I thought my son was going to be too old for it. And I told him I wouldn't do it. And he was like, Mom, aren't you going to do it this year? I said, if you want me to. I thought, I was getting, you're getting tired of me doing it. But he likes it, and it gets a lot of hits.
Well, that's fantastic. I know you also got to play in a series that I grew up watching, and it was Alpha and Omega. And you've reprised your role as Runt, one of the wolves, several times. What was it like playing that character and being able to come back several times in those feature films?
I think it's fun because, Runt's, I'll get to use my really young little boy voice. And again, it's just a studio down the street. It's easy to get there. I really love Rick, and Bernie, the casting director, always calls me in. And I like that it has so many fans. Yeah, so you watched it, huh?
Yeah. I mean, especially on the first few. I watched when the show initially came out, the first 3 or so. But I haven't seen all of them. But I did definitely watch Alpha and Omega.
Yeah, there's been a few. It's kind of one of those... it's another one that just keeps coming back, Land Before Time,
Yeah, I think we're on Land Before Time 50 now or something. But I remember when it first came out when I was a kid, and then it just kept coming out, and you're like, wow, man, they are really continuing to tell those stories.
Yeah.
So for you, what is your favorite character that you've actually got to voice?
Well, I think obviously Jimmy Neutron has been way too much fun. I did a show with Howie Mandel called Bobby's World.
Yes.
And I played his girlfriend, Jeannie. No, I'm sorry, Jackie. Jackie had really long pigtails, and she was the voice of reason, and she was very low-key, and she loved Bobby very much. It was fun doing her because she was so low energy, and that's not something I'm always called in for. I like to do that little nothing voice, Bobby. I have an abrasion on my knee. My wife is Sally Jesse Raphael. And of course, it was great working with Howie, who's a hoot, and we all got to record together. Me and Pat Fraley and Rob Paulson, and so many of the regular peoples.
Well, that's fantastic. I didn't realize you were on Bobby's World. That was definitely one of my favorites growing up as a kid. And yeah, Howie was fantastic. I know when I was watching, I think Deal or No Deal, somebody was like, that was Bobby, right? And I went like, you got to be kidding me, really? Like he did a fantastic job.
Bobby. Love his voice on Bobby.
That's awesome. Well, I didn't realize you'd been on that show. So thank you for sharing that with us, because that was a tidbit that I wasn't prepared for. So, Debbie, the question I have for you right now is, what kind of advice would you give to someone who might be looking at joining the voiceover industry?
I'm glad you asked that question, Trent. Because I've written a book called Voiceover 101, How to Succeed as a Voice Actor, that's available on Amazon. And you can also email me if you want an autographed copy at info@debiderryberry.com. And you can also go on Amazon, Voiceover 101. And I go through everything I've learned in 30 years on how to do voiceover, succeed at voiceover. And everybody asked me the question you just asked me. And I thought, well, it's more than I can answer in just a sentence. It's if you're an actor and you have a great voice, or you're a great reader and you're an actor, and you have a lot of stick-to-itiveness, then voiceover might be the place for you, especially if you're a singer or a musician. It's a great job. I love it, and it's a lot of work. I mean, last night, right before I'm just regular like everyone else. I got to make my kids dinner and walk my dogs, and I was in here knocking out 5 auditions. I got up this morning and knocked out a couple more auditions before I have this web interview, and then I have another audition, and I have to prepare for an on-camera motion capture job. It's constantly busy, and I love it. And I'm going tomorrow to teach at a school, and then this weekend I'm going to Texas to teach in Austin. Keeps me busy.
Well, being busy as an actor is always a great thing, so that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that you are staying so active and so busy in the industry.
Want to hear about my new funnest job?
Yeah, tell us.
Well, there's two of them. I don't know if you've watched F is for Family.
I haven't.
If you're not over 18, don't watch it because it's naughty. There's a comedian named Bill Burr who's very funny, and he stars in this show. It's his show, F is for Family. And I'm like the Lisa Simpson of the family.
Okay.
And there's a lot of bad words, but it's super funny. And season 1's on Netflix, and we just finished recording season 2 that'll be on Netflix in a few months. So that's a really great show if people will go watch F is for a Family on Netflix. And then I'm also the voice of Lucky for Lucky's Tale. And if you don't know what that is, there is a platform called the Oculus Rift. That's the virtual reality headset that you put on. Those glasses give you 360 and you're in the game. Well, the game that comes with the Oculus Rift is called Lucky's Tale. So they've sold over 4 million units of these things, and I'm Lucky's voice.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it's a real, I wish I got some dollars for everything they bought, but they're, hopefully everybody will know Lucky pretty soon.
That's fantastic. Or get lucky.
Get lucky.
Absolutely. I look forward to trying that out. You know, Debbie, when you were talking about the signed copy, how would somebody buy that from you? Would they pay you, or how do they do that to get the signed copy?
They go to info@debiderryberry.com, and then you just have to say, I want an autographed copy, and then they would go to PayPal and pay $18. It's a $15 book, so $18 just covers the postage. And the email you put in on PayPal is info@debiderryberry.com, and my name is spelled DEBI, D as in David, ERRY, B as in boy, ERRY.
Thank you so much for giving all of the details on that. So I'm sure there will be a lot of people looking at getting your book, as I will as well, and especially getting an autographed copy.
They can get an ebook also if they don't want the paperback.
Okay.
And if everyone that's listening would follow me on Twitter @Debi Derryberry, I would love that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I believe I've already followed your page, but if I haven't, I definitely will.
Oh, yeah. I have a fan book page on Facebook and, of course, Instagram and Snapchat and all those other ones.
So lots of different ways to connect with Debi Derryberry. Well, Debbie, you kind of answered my question already on how people can contact you, but is info@Debi Derryberry, if somebody wanted to reach out to you and ask any questions, would they speak to you through there or just on your social media pages, or if they just wanted to say hi?
Probably the info, or they can send me a message on Facebook. So I usually try to get to everybody. It takes a while. And if you don't hear back from me in, a couple weeks, pop me out, ping me again, because sometimes it falls down into the list and it gets buried. But I really try to get back with everybody.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Debbie. I have a question for you. What is your favorite cartoon character from growing up, and why?
A couple of them. I like Fred Flintstone a lot, but mostly because I had an older brother and he had the control of the remote, and I didn't get to choose what we watched, and that's what we watched. But I enjoyed it, and I kind of always thought that Fred was Fred's voice. I didn't really think about the fact that that was an actor doing that, and that I'd ever be doing that. And then I also, don't laugh, I really liked Jem. Jem is truly outrageous.
Yeah.
I love Jem.
Jem and the Holograms, absolutely. A fantastic show.
That show so much.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't really get to watch the girly shows too much because there's the one TV and we didn't have computers and it was the remote and it was the Big Brother. So it was it was still good. We got to watch the Warner Brothers crazy ones with Bugs Bunny, and I love the oldies.
Yeah, nothing like the classics, that's for sure. I tell you what. Well, Debbie, I have one final question for you today, and that question is, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
Gosh, are we thinking I'm dying already? The legacy I want to leave behind is hopefully my book inspiring people and letting them know how important it is to work hard. Hopefully Jimmy Neutron will go on and on. It's a tough question. I don't think anyone's asked me that before, Trent. I guess just the body of my work, and I love all the fans, and hopefully I can do voiceover till the day I drop dead in the studio.
Well, it's a question I ask all of my actors. And more recently, I actually didn't get to ask it of Daniel Ross, but he'll be back on the show, I'm sure. But he's the one that talked extremely highly of you, very flattering of you. And he definitely has a special place in his heart for you, Debbie. So.
Yes, I love that boy, Daniel Ross. When people come through my studio, real talent really jumps out at me, and I want to help everyone that I can. And Daniel is extremely talented, and I've been, beating him, pushing him, helping him, anything that I can do to help him. But he doesn't need any help anymore. He's holding his own, doing great.
Yeah, he told us when he was on the show a little bit ago that he was going to have some big unveils of some new things coming out. So we're definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I can't say anything about it, but it's good news.
That's awesome. Cannot wait. Well, Debbie, thank you so very much for being on the show today. It was an absolute honor and pleasure having you with us.
Thank you so much, Trent, for having me. Good luck with everything.
Yes.
And you did a great job with your interview.
Well, Debbie, thank you so very much for your kind words. I really am glad you enjoyed the interview. Before we go, would you please just give us a closeout today as Jimmy Neutron, the boy genius?
This is Debi Derryberry, and you're listening to Who Did That Voice? Was that Jimmy Neutron? Ha! Got a blast!
Well, everyone, that's all the time we have for this episode. Join us this Tuesday, January 17th, for our next special guest, Susan Bennett, the voice of Siri from iPhone. You won't want to miss this episode. Hey, do you ask yourself who did that voice? Well, if you do, go to our website, www.whodidthatvoice.co, and click on the Episodes tab. Choose an actor, pick their name, and see pictures from the different characters they've voiced in their career.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time for more discoveries on Who Did That Voice.